Welcome back to Rules to Thrive. In today's episode, we sit down with Jo Madani. Jo was born in the city of Pune, close to Bombay. She was born a rebel, pushing against every social norm there is. She dreamed about fashion, business, and big cities. And her campaigns landed her accolades from the American Advertising Federation. In her recently published book, The Immigrant Journey, Jo explores the concept of a split heart, where she explores how race, gender, and identity intertwine. So let's get started. Officially, would love to welcome you to Rules to Thrive. Thank you for coming today, and I'm super excited for you to tell your story. Let's just get into it.
So thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here because the timing is amazing. I'm just getting ready to launch my book. I was born in India and I migrated to the US in my mid 20s. And it wasn't chasing any dream of mine. I just was working in agencies in India and I was burnt out. So I trailed my husband's career here. And my first stop was Florida. And so that was biggest plot twist. And then 2012, we had to relocate to the Northeast. So I've had many, many pivots. And finally here, it's been, 2012, I was in the Northeast. So it feels a little bit settled now.
So you think this is home?
I love New York. So I'd like to believe it's home.
Yeah.
And I've worked here with agencies and brands. So I feel very comfortable here.
Take me through your childhood, where you were born, your family, just so we get to know you a little bit more before you moved to the US.
So I was born in a city called Pune. It's close to Bombay. Bombay is like New York, absolutely intense and crazy, and one of my favorite places as well. I did my master's there, and I was always the odd woman out in my family because everyone is an engineer, all STEM fields, and I was the only one in the creative field. And so at first, I started my bachelor's thinking I'm going to be an accountant, and then I realized numbers and I are not friends. So I realized I'm a writer, and I started pursuing mass communication, got into advertising. And I was working even before I got into the master's program. I just started shadowing with an agency, and I absolutely loved the chaos and the creativity that came out of it.
That's amazing. How did you explain to your family what you wanted to do? Because I feel like our cultures are very similar. You can either be a physicist, mathematician, or a doctor. That's the only path. So how did you tell your family that math is not for you, and how did they take it?
I didn't. I'm quite the renegade. And actually, growing up, my mom was stay-at-home mom by choice, but my dad, he was an entrepreneur, and I'll get into that history a little later. But I would take his blazer and I would walk around with his briefcase, and I'm like, I want to do this. Like, I want to go on trips and I want to explore all of that. And he was my biggest champion. He always said, "Okay, well, we'll talk when the time comes, but who is really talking to you? Like, why are you getting these ideas?" And I'm like, I'm not designed to be a homebody. I need to do this. And so we lost him at 15. But at the time, you know, people love putting other people in a box, my family included. So they were like, oh, you got to do this. You have to do this, the milestones that you get.
Go to college,
Yeah.
get your
And
degree.
especially like we are similar backgrounds in Asia, India, very academic cultures. So my mom didn't really buy into my vision. So one fine day, we really had it out. And I said, I need to do this for myself. And this commerce stream is not working for me. So I am going to do my master's with or without you. And I think I had a lovely aunt. She stepped in and we made peace. And I just kept on my path. So it was very liberating.
If you were to ask your mom to explain what you do for your job today, what do you think she would say?
She would say she's in the creative field, but she's dabbled in fashion. She's in advertising. Now she's in PR. And now she's writing a book. So I have no idea. She would say, I have no idea.
That's a really a good background anyway. I think she will grasp it. Because if I ask my parents, they would be like, I don't know, partnerships. What is that? What's a hood of partnerships? My dad he's an engineer. He works for Northman Grumman, and my mom's an accountant. So explaining to them tech, he really tries. He goes online and researches the website, and it's like, first I worked for CPU company, which is configure price quote, like coding tool. Then I worked for a telephony company. It's contact center. And now I'm in project management and work OS. And he's just like, so you just push technology. I'm like, okay, that's good enough. Take me through your childhood. Do you have brothers? Do you have sisters? What was kind of the family dynamic?
Yeah, so I have a sister. She's 5 years younger, also in STEM. And she was the family's pride. So when we were growing up, like after this event happened, like he passed at 15. So I was very happy to lean into that fire. I knew I had it in me, but that event was like a catalyst for me to keep pushing through what I needed to do. So as we were progressing through college and whatnot, I always knew that I'm going to be a career woman. I didn't know the how and the why. I just knew the what. And as I came of age, I was actually kind of shielding my sister from some of the cultural tropes where, like we didn't have a dad. So everyone was stepping in. Oh, so what is she going to do? Is she going to, get married? What is she going to? And I was like, absolutely not. And I kept like being the wall.
The shield between.
Yes. So that was, it was great. And then eventually it's the three musketeers. We made peace with each other. And we were just like, okay, we both are destined to be career people. So we just powered through it.
Got it. And what drove your decision? Why United States? You said Bombay is just as crazy, as creative, and you already were a part of the agency world. What drove you to come to the U.S. and Florida, which is not as creative? I think we're getting. I'm in Florida now. We're getting there, but New York is definitely the mecca of creativity. So take me through that decision.
I'm one of the anomalies who didn't have an American dream, still doesn't. I literally just trailed my husband's job. And the reason being, since I was out of college, or even before, since I was 18, actually, I've been working in the creative field. And he's my high school sweetheart. So we got married much earlier. We were dating for 5 years. I didn't even get a proper proposal. It was just assumed by all and sundry that okay,
it's happening.
Yeah, it's like Ross and Rachel. it's going to happen. So I didn't really have any plans. And I just wanted to take a break, actually. So he would go in and out of the country, and I had no desire to quit my cushy agency job. And I was working on AT&T, Sharp, all these brands, and I was really living it up. So then he came back from one of the trips, and he's like, I have to go for a year. And I was like, I can't deal with either of the moms and the aunties because now I'm like a married woman. So I'm like, okay, I think I'll take a chance. And I have a love-hate relationship with Florida. So I researched everything, and you're right. Like it wasn't at the time. I'm talking like early 2000s. I remember going with my portfolio from agency to agency and getting asked like, how are you going to write to the American audience? And I have all the global brands in my portfolio.
You already worked with.
Yeah. So I said I grew up in a very urban India, and I watch Friends, and Rachel's my favorite. So I think I can manage. But it was very harrowing because going from having a master's degree and starting all over. So that I took it up as a challenge because there's only so much you can stew in it, right? Of course, I researched Fort Lauderdale, Miami, but I wasn't quite sure. It's not New York. We know that. So I took a different stance, and I said, okay, let me try getting back to school. And I really harangued this department chair. And when she gave me a meeting, she said, Jo, you already have a master's degree in advertising. I don't know what you're going to do here.
Like, why are you going after me? You already have this.
So then she said, okay, she proposed a solution. She said, I run my honors program as an ad agency, and we service nonprofits like the Boys and Girls Club, Ronald McDonald House. And she's like, why don't you just volunteer? Just start with once a week. You can help out with copy and just hang out. So I said, okay. I did that for a year. And after a year, she said, you have a way of explaining these things to people. And we talked through potentially being an adjunct faculty. And whoa, boy, was I nervous because I'm like this petite South Asian woman, still with a heavy accent. And I'm going to teach these kids who are taller than me marketing and copywriting.
Yeah.
She said, you are eloquent. You just give it a shot.
Yeah.
So thanks to her, I tried it. And I taught marketing. I taught fashion writing. And through that network, I had a fellow professor, and I had a lovely design partner, and she said, let's start freelancing. So started freelancing, and the joke is always in my head, like my bespoke consultancy found me. And so through that network, I became really close to a CEO of a hospital, and I call her my white mother. But she really listened to all of my crazy ideas because I have a very integrated way of looking at things. So I would introduce like stuff from my culture. Like, for example, we really believe in the preventive way of health. So I was working on a cardiovascular campaign, and I talked them out of going with a fear-based mentality. And I said, why don't you try the opposite? Because first of all, women's symptoms, they manifest differently. Second of all, the woman is not scared. We're not scared. You tell us we're going to have a heart attack, we will still be thinking of our to-do list because we get shit
And
done.
we'll still go through this.
We'll still go through it. So I said, how about a different approach? How about we tilted that on its head and really softened it and say, why don't you love your heart better? Because so many people are depending on you, and like build a whole narrative around that. And that, she really loved it. And she said, I make no promises. It was my very first project. And so from one hospital, because she kept referring me and the partner to everyone, it became like 14 hospitals.
Wow.
And I was working on all different kinds of like health, like neurology, oncology. And my whole approach came from my roots. So I really loved it. I loved the gig. And I had no idea. I did not engineer this. It was reverse engineered. It found me. And while I was doing all of this, I remember this clearly. Like when I was doing my master's, I was begging for an internship in Mumbai because Mumbai is like New York. And my advisor was like, sorry, Jo, it's all gone and I don't have a spot for you. And you have to figure out what your minor is. And she forced me to consider journalism. And I had so many words that day in her office, and she's like, calm down. You will be in advertising, but just this year you have to make do. So that accidentally, I bumbled into journalism. And so there was a publication, Midday, where I started covering the culture beat, fashion. And who knew that like 10 years after or 5 years after, when I moved here, I joined a writers group in Fort Lauderdale. And through that, I started getting like freelance editing work, freelance writing work. And eventually I took up the role of a consulting editor with a magazine. And I started writing for Miami Herald. And I was doing the same thing that I was doing back home.
Yeah.
But it's funny how life works out because
it's a full circle in this. Can we go back? So you go to Florida, you find this volunteer job. Do you remember your favorite project that you guys worked with, since it was quite a few nonprofits that you supported?
Yes. My favorite one was the Ronald McDonald House. And it was a very simplistic idea. And the whole point was to communicate that the house is there when the families are going through difficult health situations. So I really got acquainted with some of these other nonprofits too. And there was a small project we did for arts and culture in the city of Fort Lauderdale and Boys and Girls Club. So that was I felt very fulfilled. And I didn't make a dime at that time, but it was just so nice to do work that was making a difference.
Yeah. What do you think, out of all the work you've done, the project that connects to your roots the most?
Like one comes to mind that came from the healthcare side of things. So there was a technology that we were working on that we had to promote. It was called SILS. I don't remember how the acronym is spelled out now, but the idea behind it is if you ever had any kind of surgery in the midriff, it was laparoscopic, and the size of the scar would be smaller than a dime. And that was the whole brief. They were like, okay, how do we convince women to do this without the fear of like the huge scar? And so I went back to my culture, and I went back to other cultures too. So in India, we wear sari, and the midriff is, whether we like it or not, is exposed. So I was like, oh, there is a certain amount of demographic that wears this on occasions, whether it's wedding, whether it's Diwali. And then I also looked into the Middle Eastern side of the house, and I was like, belly dancers.
Yeah.
If she has to get a surgery, she doesn't want a six inch scar.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, that's 2. 3, we live in Miami.
Yeah.
Everyone is in a bikini
Yeah.
most of the year. So I'm like,
Yeah.
they don't want a scar either. So we did a nice panel, a visual panel for this direct mail. And the numbers were amazing. We really got a great response. So now by talking through this, I took like 3 cultural moments that meant different things to different people,
Yeah.
married it all together. And so this is the energy I was infusing in the healthcare work. And the more I did it, the more I loved it. And then by then it had become a paying gig. So from me going through, okay, maybe I should go back and get another master's, through now just willy-nilly having 3 career streams. And at the back of my mind, still I'm thinking, by now I should have been the VP of marketing. What am I doing in Fort Lauderdale? I should be in the Northeast. All of this narrative. And I kept going. But the paths just seemed to connect for me. So it's I get very inspired when people say, oh, I had this American dream. They come here for a master's. They come here with a blueprint.
Yeah.
I had none.
You built your own. You opened your own door with the volunteer opportunity. And then I think you got exposed to so many different projects that diversified your experience so much. And I think it's sometimes the expectations we have for ourselves and the reality is so much better. Even if you have, like you said, I should be VP of marketing, but you were exposed to so many different projects that add to your portfolio and to your knowledge, where now you can pull from so many different ways to be as creative as you are. And I love that. Okay, so you're in your 20s, you move with your husband. Are you expecting to go back? Are you thinking this is a year and we're coming back to Mumbai? What's your thought process?
At the time, yes. At the time, I really thought that, maybe a year, maybe 2, and we'll come back. And I had no idea that we have actually migrated. We weren't even thinking about it.
It was just going to be a year.
Yeah, it's just going to be a year. And I was like, okay, I'll come back and do something. And I also feel like every time you travel or every time you move, you get a different perspective. And I think it's humbling, right? It's so humbling because when you grow up in a particular place, your high school friends, your contacts, your professional Rolodex, everything, you leave it behind. Yeah. And then you leave it behind, you go somewhere else and they're like, who is this woman with the funny accent? And what is she going to do for us? So it's very humbling to see that. But when you return back, then you feel you've done something, you've made a difference. But even so, the first trip I went back, I was so sure I'm going to come back. And it just started fading away in the background little by little.
Do you think it's because you were building your life in the US, or did you feel disconnected to India? What do you think were the driving factors for you?
I think a little bit of both, because and I haven't recovered from that. So I use a term in my book, I call it like the split heart. And so it's funny because after the second trip, third trip, home became a very fluid construct. I was like, this doesn't feel like home anymore because everything rapidly changes. And so even when I went back, I'm like, I don't see myself fitting in here either. So and it's very evident, right? When you go back, people, for whatever reason, they just know. They just know you're not from here, even though you grew up there. And then when you come back here, you still don't belong. So I was like, this in-between space, it needs to be something, it needs to be given a vocabulary. And I just kept going back and forth. And then I have 2 children. So then that completely changes where you need to be in life. So I was like, okay, now we're here. And it's still continuing.
So the concept is called split heart.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's the best way to describe it, because my husband and I talk about it. He immigrated much later than I did. I immigrated when I was 12. And I would say I was always split between missing my home and the family and the community and the way of life. And then I didn't truly belong in the US. But then when I would go back, like you said, it would treat me like I wasn't from there.
Yes.
And it's the weirdest feeling because you don't belong anywhere.
Yeah, it's that ache which nobody understands. And also the other piece to this is when you are here, you still crave that, like my people, you crave that. Like the odds of you running into your ex here are 0. The odds of you bumping into a school friend, 0.
Yeah.
But those little serendipities, those little coincidences, I don't even know how many weddings and milestones I might have missed. But so it's we are always going to be in that liminal space.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to own it. I was like, you know what? The pining, it really gets to you. So I said, I'm just going to take it and I'm going to accept it that that's just a feeling now that
Yeah.
stays within me.
Yeah.
And so that's why this book started, I started writing it in verse. I was I'm a huge fan of Julia Cameron's Artist Way.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere in the morning pages, all this started bubbling up. And so I didn't want to get ahead of myself. So I showed it to somebody and I said, do you think there's something here?
Yeah.
Because it's not a memoir or anything. It's like little verses. And each verse is either speaking to this split heart feeling or it's talking about this conundrum about fitting in or standing out. And, when we are younger, we tend to swing between extremes.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point in time where I was trying to fit in so much that I couldn't recognize the woman in the mirror. I'm like, who am I? And why am I
Trying to fit
trying
in.
to do that? And not just, it wasn't with American people. It was trying to fit in with my own community. Because second-gen immigrants, if you notice, they're slightly different. They're still more attached to your original culture and they're still like doing everything by the book. Meanwhile, if you go to India or back home, you'll notice that like our own people they don't follow the same
Playbook
traditions and culture. So I felt very lost because
Wait, do you mean, sorry, this is interesting to me. So you're saying people who move here maintain that old school mentality and the rules, and you're saying people that are in India today are adopting new rules? Is that
not move here. These are, I'm talking about like now second-gen immigrants.
okay?
Because see, their parents migrated
With a different mentality.
Yes, and from a different India too.
Yeah.
Insert any country of origin.
Yeah.
But now, 20 years since, it's made so many strides. And even when I was growing up, for example, our whole financial landscape had changed.
Yeah.
Because globalization was happening. Channel V, MTV, everything, all the global brands were already in India.
Accessible.
So I never felt like in other words, I never felt like a fish out of water because we were so cosmopolitan in dealing with all of that. But the children of immigrants, they have a very different view of India. And so that was one disconnection. The second disconnection I felt was, India is very diverse. Like we have more than 30 languages in the country. Every region has its own dressing, food. So it's like New York. It's like a melting pot. But when you meet people from different backgrounds who also trail their husbands, like when my husband's colleagues' wives and all, they had a very set plan for themselves. They were like, okay, within a year, I'm going to have one child. Within 2 years, I'm going to have another child. I'm not sure if I want to work. They were very set. So I felt like,
where
am I?
Yeah.
Nowhere.
Yeah.
I don't belong with the second gen. I cannot connect. And to each their own, right? Everyone has their own plans. And I was like, for a while, it was very disconnecting for me. I was disconnected from my own self until I reminded myself, I'm like, listen, this has happened to me in my childhood, this imprint where people always said, you can't do this. Why are you doing this? And I said, I didn't listen to them then.
Why
am I doing that now? There were some things that I really appreciated about Americans, like especially when I was volunteering at the art school. I had a 45-year-old woman who married really early. And she's like, I'm about to be an empty nester. And I'm like, okay, but why are you studying at this point in your life? She's like, I've loved graphic design. And I had so many responsibilities. I didn't get a chance to do it. So I'm going to do it now. And I just love that. I love that about the American culture, that you can pick up
where you left off at any age. Yeah.
And versus our cultures where it's like by 30, if you don't have XYZ,
husband, degree,
house,
everything. Car, house, husband. Yeah, that's the main requirements. Yeah, I remember my mom was trying to marry me off forever. And I was very stubborn. I said, until I meet my person, I am not just settling down because you expect me to be married and have children. And I was very stubborn until 31, until I met my husband super randomly. But she was like going and showing my photos to friends while she was getting her hair done. I'm like, she's like, I got you dates. I'm like, you can go on them yourself. I'm not doing this. So
I love that. I love that.
tell me, how long did Fort Lauderdale, Miami last? And how did you guys actually land in New York?
So it lasted for about, give or take, 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was very busy. I was doing these 3 things. And in the beginning,
Remind me, it was the volunteer
oh no, now the volunteer then converted to
the
adjunct
healthcare.
faculty.
Yeah.
And it was this healthcare creative work by the
Yep.
side and the fashion writing.
Mm-hmm.
The fashion writing, I loved it. It didn't really pay well, but I really loved meeting people. So I have, through email, interviewed Carolina Herrera. I've interviewed like different designers, artists. And I actually had a column in one of the magazines. It was called Ladies Who Lunch. And the editor of the fashion side of the house, the Miami Herald, she was one of my guests. And we connected for coffee after. And she said, I loved your questions
Mm-hmm.
because I was asking about why fashion is so cyclical. Like there's so many things that from my mom's closet that I can still repurpose. And that's the beauty of it, right? Like
Yeah.
whatever, it's the trends, they come and go.
They come back.
So she loved that question. And she said, what is the policy with the magazine? Can you still write for the Miami Herald? And I said, yeah, because I'm not crossing wires. I'm not taking one story from here to the other. Spoke to my publisher. He was fine. And that's how I started. It was like a Ladies Who Lunch interview. I was interviewing her.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ended up that I started writing for the Miami Herald.
That's crazy.
And yeah, I kept both. And here, then I started picking up like freelance gigs with agencies. And even in-house. So I worked at ASI, I worked at Novartis, I worked for a travel brand in-house, and my career again shifted. And I never was able to break into the fashion world because I had another plot twist. I had my son 3 years after moving here.
Mm-hmm.
And I had made peace with that. I thought, that's it. I really tried to be that textbook mom where they'll be 3 years apart. And I was trying to plan. And the universe knows that I'm not meant for
A plan.
yeah, like plotting things like that. And I tried to make a whole timeline around it.
Mm-hmm.
Out of nowhere, he just decides to appear.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was actually blogging for a Florida magazine, but I had my press pass for the New York Fashion Week.
Nice.
And I'm big as a whale. It's snowing. It's February. And I have my dress. I have my flat shoes ready. And I go for a checkup to the doctor. And the doctor starts laughing at me. She's like, are you kidding me? It's snowing. And you want to go for
Fashion
this.
week, yeah.
And she's like, darling, 5 a.m. I have to call you. Like he's coming out.
Oh, he.
I had no idea. I was just like, okay, yeah. And so she called my husband in the
Yeah.
middle of the appointment and she's like, tell this woman she cannot go to New York. And I wrote in my son's that memory book and I said, you better be good looking and you better be ridiculously smart.
You made me miss Fashion Week.
Yes, I wrote that. And I made him read it just like 2 weeks ago. I said, okay.
He owes you Fashion Week.
Yes.
He owes you to take you to Fashion Week.
But after that, then I just continued working full time and, had my hands full with 2 kids. So I never really chased fashion as much. So that chapter closed.
Is it still something? Because it sounds to me like you were never afraid to go back.
I don't know.
try to
Then this
pursue.
book came.
Yeah.
So now I'm in the thick of it. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, let's see.
Take me through the book. What sparked the idea for you? I'm guessing the Carrie Bradshaw journaling has always been a part of you, but what was the catalyst of you to deciding to write it?
So not Carrie Bradshaw in this one for sure. So this book, like as I was saying earlier, this ache that we feel, right? Like we feel like we're in between worlds. So I wanted to give that in between ache a language. And so I started writing. I've written about 50 verses, and each one of them is very different in flavor. So the first one talks about ambition. It talks about how, sometimes you just need the courage to fly. And like people like you and I, we don't respond to the, how should I say this nicely, like participation trophy. we need that anger. We need someone to tell us, you can't do this, and we will do it, and we will deliver, and we'll go above and beyond. So some speak to that. Some speak to this whole obsession that humanity has of putting people in boxes. Like, you must be, because you're Southeast Asian, you must be an engineer, or you must be a doctor. And I'm like, even in India, like, it's universal. It's nothing to do with being an immigrant. It's just universal. So,
but it's also beyond that. I was thinking about it. Like, if you answer, like, if you meet someone today, right? Everyone starts with, what's your name? What do you do? Right? But when I'm starting to answer it now, it's not just my title and my job. You know, I'm sure it's similar to you. So let's do this exercise if you'd like. So for me, it's like, what do you do? I've spent 10 years, a decade in tech, and I lead partnerships at Monday.com. I also started Rules to Thrive, a podcast and workshops and keynotes, and I've been running women enablement and women empowerment for the last 11 years, really focusing on sharing blueprints. So it's not one or two or three things. I'm also a wife. I'm also a daughter. You know, but I think there's so much to that you're not in a box, and you could be so many different things. And let's not forget hobbies. You know, to you, I still think fashion is a big part of what you love, and we never talk about it, right? It's not a part of the talk track when you meet new people. So if I were to ask you, without putting in a box, how would you, if someone asked you, what do you do? What would you answer?
I honestly don't know. I have not articulated that because I'm in transition. In the past 14 months. So I'm still consulting as a healthcare marketer. I am an author. My book is about to be born. I'm a mom, and hobbies. It's on my list. Like, I wanted to at least try some kind of an acting class, or I wanted to do some kind of a styling. I might have, if you look at my browser history, FIT, the styling foundations class, I almost sign up and then I don't because I don't have time with all of this going on. So you articulated your journey beautifully. I feel like mine is still.
I think you're there. I think it's also the overachievers in us really wants to do things and now.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think the reality is it'll come in phases, like you said. It'll come in a cosmic way of a timing when your son will give you a little bit more space, when your daughter goes to college, and you'll find that time. I feel like you will create space for the course that keeps showing up in your browser.
And my one parallel that I've drawn from my marketing world to this literary world now is that I use a framework for clients. It's called Insight to Impact. So this book, when you read about my insights, you are now processing your own, and that will then help you to make that impact. And it's powered by influence. It's powered by intersectionality. So now it's a full circle.
What do you think the audience? Do you have a demographic that you're going after? Is it immigrants? Is it anyone? Is there an age? Like, who are you targeting?
There's no age. So, I mean, the book is called The Immigrant Journey.
Yeah.
The journal is called The Immigrant Lens. But if you think about it, we're all immigrants. Like, look at New York, right? Second gen, third gen.
Yeah.
So this book is for anyone who feels like they're navigating either a transition or they're between versions of themselves. So interestingly, when I wrote this, we have a family friend. He's an executive coach, and he's also a licensed therapist. And so I just, on a whim, sent him the manuscript of both. And I said, Jonathan, what do you think about it?
Yeah.
And my God, Olga, he wrote me back 4 paragraphs. And I was sobbing with a Kleenex next to it, my laptop screen. And he said, you have now given me a language for this ache, because I have never seen it articulated like that. When are you publishing this so I can give this to my patients and I want them to start journaling? I have a sentence in the book. It's like one part of my heart is yelling at the other for not doing enough, for not being enough. Like some days I don't feel like a great daughter because there's an ocean between us. Or I'm trying to justify my migration by overly working and by
overperforming.
Yeah. So it never goes away.
Yeah.
And so little by little, I've started to make peace with it. But that being said, if you flip that in a positive light, it gives you agency like no other. It's like you now you can put me in any situation and I will figure out instinctively what I can do.
Yeah.
So it fundamentally changed what opportunity means. And it's like, I don't have like an uncle like who went to high school and who's placing me. And like, I've built this on my own, one person at a time. And I try to pay it forward as much as possible. But it stays with you. This narrative that we've been fed has been all like, you have to take your polished self everywhere and you have to do this. And none of that is true. I think the one thing that connects people, and I love the name, by the way, I love that name, Rules to Thrive, because the one thing that connects people is not how many great things we've done or where we've been, but it's also like where we faltered and what we learned from it. And how that experience then enriches the other person too, by extension. So that is the part I like.
For sure. I was looking at, I always like to keep it very simple, but thrive to me, like, I think we have this mentality, and maybe I had it as a kid, where once you're done with school and college, you get this great job, you make money, and you're done. And like, I remember being like, I'm so done reading, because I was doing an MBA and doing an MBA in finance and marketing, and I was doing a dual and I was doing full time. I was like, I'm so over it, so over reading, I'm so over all the practical stuff. But I realized that the curiosity doesn't go away. And the way to thrive in life is you continue to learn. So learning never goes away. And for you to thrive really is you're constantly pushing through something to achieve the next thing and thrive in your life, whether you're chasing health, whether you're chasing love, whether you're chasing career. I think it's thriving becomes a part of everything you're doing.
I loved how you extrapolated the rules to thrive. And the one thing I loved is usually people associate that with more ambition and more, like do more, be more. But you connected it with like very meaningful things like health, like love. And, you know, love has many forms. It's not necessarily romantic love. It's also rediscovering the parts of your own self that you love. So I love that. I just wanted to call that out.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think my favorite last question that I love to ask is, what are your 3 rules to thrive?
Oh, wow. I didn't write that one down.
Sorry, that was a surprise.
So, no, it's a good surprise. I love that brand name. So my 3 rules are, 1 is to stay ever curious. And 2 is, these don't put limits on yourself. Like, oh, I'm too old or I cannot do this. If you always have the beginner's mindset, it is truly my belief that if you're physically and you're mentally able, you can do anything you put your mind to. So it's just come at it with like a childlike way, like
Curiosity.
This is new. I'm going to do this. I'm going to try it. And the third thing is find a home within yourself. The second you do that, automatically everything, it fits like a puzzle. Like you have to really work on yourself and you tell yourself, I belong here. There is a place for me. And the more you program yourself in that way, where it's coming from a place of strength, and you know, make that displacement a principle instead of a loss.
Yeah.
So I think that third point of like finding, that really is the essence of my book, finding the home within yourself with all your layers, with everything. Just embrace your and wholeheartedly.
And in the words of our favorite character, Carrie Bradshaw, the most important relationship is the relationship that you have with yourself.
Yes.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you for being on our podcast. I loved our conversation, and I cannot wait for our audience to get hands on your workbook.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.